time to present Scott duPont to bring you another episode of Finance Your Movie with tips and strategies to help you get your money to tell your story. It's time!
Okay, I am here today with Tom Brainsky. He is an entrepreneur, CEO, investor, and the host of the Brain Droppings podcast. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, thank you.
A real honor to have you on here. I know how busy you are. Just a quick side note how Tom and I met. We've only known each other for about a month or so. We met through JT Fox, who hosted a big event called Mega Success. And I applaud you for attending because I know you spent a lot of time traveling across the country, hotel, time away from your business for about a week. So I applaud you for that.
Oh, hey, it was completely, totally worth going. And I got to meet you and a bunch of other fantastic people.
So what was kind of interesting, and we'll get into this in just a minute. The reason I asked you on the podcast is you when we were talking about some different things, you asked me and seemed really interested. And later you asked our director that you had a side conversation with, Rick Pamplin, about investing. So let me ask you this. What was your goal? And we'll get into all that in just a minute. What was your goal or outcome of traveling all the way across the country to attend Mega Success?
Well, for me, I wanted to learn about what JT Fox was promoting. I also was looking for funding on a couple of business deals. So I thought I would try and network at that event. So that was kind of my main goal when I went out there.
Okay. How did the networking turn out?
Fabulous. I learned about things that I had never considered before. And one of those things actually was through talking with you, which was movie funding. And I was also looking for ways of different investing. So my primary was trying to fund some projects that I was looking for, but secondary was trying to learn about different ways of investing and getting more out of my money than just simply running it through my 401k.
Got it. Kind of diversifying your
basically, yeah. What else is out there that I'm not aware of?
Okay. One of the and the audience listening right now who are independent filmmakers, probably most likely listening, are looking for money for their projects right now. They probably are not going to like what I'm going to say the next 30 seconds, but one of my goals when I went to Mega Success was basically to learn new business and fundraising strategies and primarily network for myself, but also for some of my clients. And not for a second was I thinking about looking for investors, because it usually doesn't work out very well if you put pressure on yourself to go into a new environment and look for money right away. And Tom,
I went ahead and did that. So,
well, it was reversed because you.
I'm the exception to the rule, I guess.
But do you remember the billionaire Rami El-Batrawi?
Oh my God, yes, brilliant. One of the most persistent, intelligent people I've ever seen speak.
I agree. So just a quick 30-second recap for anyone listening. Here's a guy who was literally came across the border into the U.S. from Canada. He was homeless for quite a while. He made his first million by 17, his first billion by 40. He lost most of that. He's going to be a billionaire again, he claims, in the next few years. And here's his kind of mantra. There are no transactions big enough, and there is no one we can't get to, meaning his investors. But what else I thought was very interesting is he has a 6-month rule that I kind of also did, but I didn't really think about it, is he never asks for anything, including money, for at least 6 months.
It's a way to build trust. I understand it. I don't love it. I mean, look, I don't think anyone's going to love that, especially your listeners and anyone who's trying to fund an independent film. And I think in terms of, maybe younger people or people who just have an idea, yeah, it doesn't make sense. People generally don't want to shell out money to people they don't really know or can't necessarily feel that they trust.
Yeah. And I think, it doesn't have to be that 6-month rule set in stone, but I
No, but you
think
need to be able to trust.
what his whole point was when you meet somebody for the first time, like when you and I met for the first time, um, we kind of had this instant connection around airplanes.
Right.
And I was actually listening about this investment. And I know you weren't really pitching me. We were just kind of talking airplanes. So it
Right.
came up. But if you meet people and find out what you might be able to do for them, or you might be able to help connect two people together outside of your world, or just make an introduction, that's kind of a whole different thing than, hey, my name's Scott and I'm looking for $500,000 to fund my next movie.
So one of the I gave you the primary and basically secondary reason as to why I went to Mega Success. But what changed for me once I got there is basically what you're articulating, which is I realized I needed to shift gears from what about me to what can I do to serve others. And so my conversations changed, and my conversation had already changed by the time I ran into you. And so it wasn't so much, what can I get from Scott, or what can I do with Scott that's going to benefit me? It was more or less I was coming from a place of, tell me about yourself. Is there something that I can do for you? And can I bring value to your life? To if we bring value to other people, that value is going to come back. And I think a lot of people miss out on that important part of just being who we are.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And in some ways, when you least expect it, there could be some network connection that you connected with 3 months ago. And like I'm having actually a late lunch meetup in Studio City today from a producer that wants to find out what kind of clients I'm looking for and what I'm doing so she can help me. And at the same time, I'm obviously going to ask how I can help her.
Oh, I
And you
mean,
never know when those things can pop up a month from now or a year from now.
oh yeah, I mean, it makes sense, just, and that's the entrepreneurial side of me, is just, is trying to see if there's opportunity in one way or another. When I was looking at what you were showing me, one of the things that I thought about a lot, actually, since we met, since I spoke to my wife, who also is obviously married to me, so money's not going to come out of my pocket without talking with her, is just considering putting money into movies. I'd never considered anything like that before. And then I thought, and I've actually thought about this a lot, is why isn't there enough about it? How can it be explained in a way where more people can possibly be interested and get involved in funding movies for investment purposes? Yes, it's high risk. I think we could all agree on that. But the explanation isn't out there. It was nice of you to actually take the time and actually draw it out on a piece of paper, which I thought was awesome, as I think I was, at the time, I might have been eating a Pop-Tart. But no one really knows that unless you're really kind of tied into the industry. And based on some of the conversations that I'd had with you, talking with Rick Pamplin, seeing it was a great film, Movie Money Confidential. There is this need for people to invest money, and there is this need for people who are trying to make movies to get money. But I don't think the two go hand in hand very easily, because they don't necessarily make sense to one another. And if there's a way to actually make sense of this, I think that things might move a lot smoother, especially for the independent filmmaker. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And I think just because there's so few people that are, and I'm not talking about like a short film or a YouTube video or something on Instagram. There's probably one out of it. I'm just guessing, by the way. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just guessing there's one out of every 100,000 people that's actually stepping up and doing a feature length motion picture. So I think just because there's so few of us out there, but at the same time, and when I drew that piece of paper for you in the hotel lobby and we were talking, for people that have an open mind and they want to diversify their investments, they want to get into something that's a recession-proof industry with the right project, it's pretty exciting.
It is. It is. The idea of royalty checks down the line. I mean, that's kind of nice. I mean, that's a whole concept that most people generally don't think about. And as far as what you just said about 1 in 100,000 or whatever the statistic may be, you're probably dead on accurate with that. But at the same time, I have to look at it and I think, where have we come compared to where we've been as far as people who are producing content? As every day goes on, there's more and more people who are trying to produce decent content. And I mean, I'm a layman when it comes to this, Scott. I'm not part of Hollywood, but in my view, there's so many people that are trying to produce really good content, and some of it may require funding, and the Hollywood model may fit that because everyone at this point carries their phone around and they're trying to capture everything that there is. Does that make sense, or am I way off base?
No, it does. I think what we're both kind of getting to here is our conversation about you asking me about, hey, how do I invest in movies? And other people who might be listening to this podcast,
Who'd never
they're
considered it.
not just the average content creator. There's a dime a dozen out there, and some incredible stuff I see on TikTok, Instagram,
Mhm.
everywhere. Like, I'm blown away. But there's a whole nother level when you're getting ready to do 100-minute feature with the quality control standards that a reasonable distributor will accept, and
Yeah, I
all
agree
the
with that.
legal things that go along with it. I mean, there's you need some money, you need some legal advice, you need a lot of things that the average TikToker or YouTuber just doesn't have
Oh,
yet.
without a doubt. But I guess my question is there is there a pent up push coming from these creators who want to, I think that, is there more people who want to take their creativity to the next level? Is this something that's probably going to happen over the next 10 years, do you think?
I,
Because
I
they're
think
already
I,
creating?
I think it's already happening now.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for my podcast is I want to reach the small number of those millions who are creating great content, who have decided, because it's a huge, huge mental jump. It's like, okay, I'm going to spend a year of my life working on one single project, raise the money, and do it. And just a lot of people just don't have the focus or the determination to do that. And I just want to help them, guide them through that financing process, which is why I had you on today. So let's just jump into a few questions, which I think the audience might find very valuable. And I haven't really asked you this before, so I just love your honest answer. And you're an honest guy. I'm sure you'll tell
I
us.
will not hold back.
Um, what what is it that's attracting you right now to consider investing in an independent film?
Um, one, speaking with you and having you kind of explain it took some of the fear away. Not that there was a desire before, there really wasn't, but out of happenstance, I saw, hey, I didn't know that this could be something where I, as an independent guy who's, I got a schmuck with some money that wants to actually put it somewhere other than the 401k, right? And maybe I could do something with this. And so when you kind of explained it, and yeah, certainly you explained the risk, but at the same time, you also explained how does it work? What is a share of a movie? How do the royalties work? All these things. I started to think, well, maybe this is a good opportunity for me. Maybe it's something I can put some money into. If there's a project out there that I really think is a great idea and I believe in, then maybe I will be willing to put some money on the line and support something like that. And so that's, I guess that's probably the most honest way I could answer your question.
Great answer. So next question, what investment amount would you consider as a first time movie investor putting in a movie?
Um, I forget who said it, but and I'm going to totally blow this quote, but something along the lines of, you wouldn't want to blow any more than you could afford to do at a casino, right, or something like that. For me, It's probably within the $1,000 to $10,000 range, depending on where I am with my year, what kind of year I'm having, uh, where my wife and I are basically sitting financially. I mean, I wouldn't be first time out going, hey, let me throw $100,000 at this. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Another thing, I've never asked a potential investor this. I have circled back to my actual investors 6 months after they invested and the movie's out. What kind of conversations do you have with your wife when you don't have to get too intimate or personal. I'm not trying to go there, but what kind of conversations would you have about, hey, I'm going to invest in something that's not really a usual investment and it's a little risky. Like how does that conversation go?
I am so glad you asked me that, because I literally just had this happen this week, because I was talking about a project that you and Rick are working on, and I was discussing it in bed with my wife, which is, where all great and painful conversations can take place. And her reaction when I said, "Yeah, I was thinking about maybe, putting a small amount of money in." Well, her version of small amount compared to my version of small amount were two very different things. And so having to kind of explain the before even a movie, having to explain the basics of what small amount is between the two of us, that in itself is a little bit of a challenge. But getting to the purpose behind the movie, and what I would like to be able to put into it if it's available, the conversation at least went in a more positive direction, I'll put it that way. But it's a tough conversation no matter what, because you're talking about a spouse who their idea may be, our retirement is going to be 401k, it's going to be IRA, we're going to we're going to rely on compound interest, we're going to be aggressive with the mutual funds, we're going to put X amount away per paycheck, and we're going to pay down our debt. And so you throw something like this into the mix, it becomes a very unusual conversation, to say the least.
Yeah, but it sounds like you had a pretty honest and a good initial conversation. So that's interesting.
Yeah, believe me, we're going to be talking about a lot more, especially as things progress with your project, and when you guys actually do need it. I'm going to have more difficult conversations, because she just like, and I mean, I don't want to knock her. She's actually,
No.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I'm pretty successful, but the whole reason I'm successful is because I've got a spectacular spouse who reins me in and keeps me grounded, and make sure that whatever I do, I'm terrible with money, so whatever work I do, she bills it out and makes sure the money comes in. So she's very conscientious about that, and I would have to imagine there's a lot of people like me, and that's kind of why I'm at least phrasing it like this for your listeners.
Yeah, sounds like a good team. You're more of the entrepreneurial mindset, doing creative things, some oftentimes thinking out of the box, and she seems to be more of the accountant type who just kind of protects long-term investment strategy, which is a very, very smart thing to do, by the way. You don't want to go to the casino too often.
No, and we don't generally risk money. We're very conservative with money. I tend to try and be more aggressive with investing. She's a little bit less aggressive. We're both aggressive in terms of mutual fund selection and things like that. But I mean, I tend to be a little bit more. I do in business create a giant wake behind me, and she does a spectacular job. God bless her for running cleanup on that wake. But yeah, I mean, I am the type of entrepreneur who just I see an opportunity, and I attack, and that does tend to create a big mess. And she's usually generally pretty good about cleaning up the mess. And I'm sure she'd like to retire at some point from that job.
Yeah, well, both of you guys, you want to get to some point where you just don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right.
Which is a nice place
That's
to
the
be
whole goal, right?
Yeah, when you get to that point, you can just do what you want to do and enjoy life with however you choose.
Exactly. We're not there. We're making progress. I'll put it that way. But we do have a goal in mind, and we have a time frame in mind, and we've made tremendous progress. But I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet, and she'd like to retire now.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, and this applies to a lot of the audience members listening to this on a lower budget film, let's just say anywhere between $200,000 up to $500,000. The minimum investment usually can be between 2,500 and 10,000.
And
So
that's in my opinion, that's a small amount of money. But when you're looking at investors and John Q. Public investors, Scott. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not your typical Hollywood investor. I'm not the guy that you've been to over movie over movie over movie. And I'm just like anybody else, a married guy who's got to deal with evaluating a deal and see if it's worth it for them. And these are the things that take place behind the scenes to even make that 2,500 show up for an independent movie.
yeah. And what I tell a lot of the filmmakers, because they always want to find the 6-figure investors, like, oh, where do I find the single executive producer that just writes a check for the full $500,000 movie? That
Yeah,
often doesn't happen.
the unicorn.
And yeah, oftentimes you get a lot of people like yourself, Tom, and a bunch of Toms come in and they have a really great experience. They're all kind of invested, and it's a win-win for everyone. And hopefully the movie success, and maybe next time you come in for a little bit more, or maybe you just come in the same amount, but you have a good vibe about the whole
Right.
experience, and hopefully an ROI at the end of the day as well.
That's what I'm hoping for. Having never done it before, obviously that's where my hope is. Um, for those who are listening who are looking at funding their movies, I'm your target, basically. Guys like me are your target. They're entrepreneurial in spirit. They may have some extra money laying around that they may be looking to do something a little bit different with. But the key is going to have to be, how do you actually get them to do it, and be very clear and reassuring and completely totally honest. Don't blow any smoke up anybody's butt. But just be very clear about what you're trying to achieve, and show what the potential is in a very honest manner. And I think that you'll probably be pretty successful with guys like me.
I am so glad that you said that one sentence. I'm not trying to paint a target on your back, but I'm trying to make a point. You said, I am your target. Because here's what happens quite a bit. People that get into the film finance world for the first time, they go, Scott, where do I find the big movie investors? Like, where are the big movie investors? Well, a lot of them aren't in Hollywood. Trust me, because they know, even with some of the studio projects, there's a lot of risk. And what's interesting is, because I'm not looking for big movie investors, I'm just reaching out to anybody and everybody, guys just like you. And I talk to a lot of people, and every once in a while, there's somebody like you with an entrepreneurial spirit that might have 5,000, might have 25,000, might have 50,000. And that's how all of my movies get funded.
Well, it makes sense. You're not, your target is probably not your target's probably not the guy who went to college and has a really nice job making 70 or 80 grand, or 100, 100 grand, married, maybe collectively they got $125, $150 a year, and they each have a job, and one's in computers and the other one's maybe in finance or teaching or whatever. That may be a decent target, but don't you want entrepreneurs who generally have an open mind to things? I mean, that to me is probably at least the best direction to go. You small business people, people who are outside the box thinkers, people who don't stay inside the lines typically. And that's why I mean, you didn't put the target on me. I put it on myself, just based on what my view is of who you probably should be looking for.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Tom. Thanks for kind of summing that up. So before I let you go here, is there any particular project that you have that you would like to kind of give a 60-second pitch to our Millionaire Flicks audience, who you know very, very well, by the way, because inside that room, what did JT said? There was something like
Oh,
$92 billion.
$1 billion is something.
Yeah, in this one kind of half a ballroom. It was pretty small, like, I don't know, 700 people.
Yes. Well, I mean, personally, I'm looking to fund a couple of projects. My near and dear to my heart is aviation. I've been in aviation my whole life, and I'm looking to pivot some of my life and pick up a 135 charter airline, jet ready if possible. So I'm looking for that. If anyone's interested in that, they could reach out to me. There's currently one or two that I'm looking at right now. I also actually, if anyone actually wants to do anything with dental, there's a massive project I have, massive funding, but ridiculous potential. It would easily probably go head to head with Smile Direct Club if your listeners are familiar with that. So they could reach out to me if they want to do like a big startup kind of thing.
What would be the minimum investment on that dental thing?
Oh, that one.
I know somebody who might.
Yeah, that one. I mean, we're talking about $7 to $8 million just to get rolling. It would have a pretty good return, and I think I don't have it in front of me, but the ROI on that one would pay itself back in a couple of years, really, probably about 3 to 4 years, if not faster, with additional growth. It's just a concept that's very different, bit of an industry disruptor. Um, this would not be something. It's not a small business kind of thing. It's kind of a big deal.
Okay, and what's the best way that people can follow you or contact you? Social media, however. LinkedIn.
I am so glad you asked. Well, first of all, they should be going to anywhere that they get their podcasts and look up Brain Droppings with Brainsky. That's Brain Droppings with Brainsky. One more time, because that's the way you're supposed to market. Brain Droppings with Brainsky. And that's Brain Sky is how that's spelled. I'm also available on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, LinkedIn. I tend to be more on Facebook and LinkedIn. Maybe I'm an old fuddy-duddy, but that's usually where you can find me.
LinkedIn is I think so overlooked, especially for business and networking connections.
I prefer it.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I know you're a busy guy. We went a little bit over today, but really, really fascinating insights coming from somebody that, who knows, in the next few weeks or months, you probably will be a movie investor. And I really thank you for your time.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening. And remember, it's time!
There's never been a better time to make your own indie film. And if you have a dream project you're excited about and 100% committed to getting it funded, go to financeyourmovie.com and click on the green telephone button. You'll see our calendar, and if you find an open spot, grab it. You'll get a one-on-one call with me or one of my partners. It will be the best hour you've ever spent getting clarity and strategy towards financing your movie. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.